Hi girls! Today we're going to go over English 2 Semester 1 Week 2 Activity 1.5, Two Kinds of Cultural Identity. Our learning target for this activity are to analyze how two characters interact and develop over the course of a text to explain how conflict is used to advance the theme. So in this activity, you're going to read an excerpt from a novel and analyze the conflict between the two characters. So let's look at the literary terms on the side. A conflict is a struggle or a problem in a story. The central conflict of a fictional text sets the story in motion. An internal conflict occurs when a character struggles between opposing needs or desires or emotions within his or her own mind. An external conflict occurs when a character struggles against an outside force. This force may be another character, a societal expectation, or something in the physical world. So let's look for setting a purpose for reading. So as you read Amy Tan's Two Kinds, look for evidence of conflict. Mark the text for the reasons of the conflict and how it's resolved. So reasons and resolution. Then also we're going to circle unknown words and phrases and try to define what they mean by using context clues, word parts, or a dictionary. So Two Kinds by Amy Tan. I'm going to go over the first few paragraphs with you and demonstrate how to do the text marking. After that, it's up to you to annotate the rest of the story. This story is somewhat long, so you might want to do it chunk by chunk, taking breaks in between to make sure that you don't burn yourself out. So, my mother believed you could be anything you wanted to be in America. You could open a restaurant. You could work for the government and get good retirement. You could buy a house with almost no money down. You could become rich. You could become instantly famous. So, I've read this story before. I'm going to just give you this tip, that the fact that her mother believed that she could be anything you wanted in America kind of became a central conflict for the girl. I'm also going to highlight you could become instantly famous. So her mother really believed in this dream that if you work hard enough, you can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. Of course, you could be a prodigy too, my mother told me when I was 9. You could be best anything. What does Auntie Lindo know? Her daughter, she is only best tricky. So here we have a conflict between Auntie Lindo and the mom. And also kind of a competition between the mom's daughter and Auntie Lindo's daughter. So hold on. Auntie Lindo versus mom. And plus Auntie Lindo's daughter versus the main character. So America was where all my mother's hopes lay. She had come to San Francisco in 1949 after losing everything in China. Her mother and father, her home, her first husband, her 2 daughters, twin baby girls. But she never looked back with regret. Things could get better in so many ways. So this is partially what drives her mother's obsession with her daughter becoming a prodigy, is that she had things so bad in China, so she really wanted her daughter to have the best possible success now that they were in America, and didn't want her daughter to experience the same kind of losses that she had experienced. So that was the mother's primary focus since coming to America, was making sure that her daughter had this opportunity to become really good at something and become rich and famous through some kind of an activity. So I want you to continue reading throughout the story, looking for those searches for conflict, and also keep an eye out for any type of attempt to resolve the conflict as well. So please annotate as you read, and then meet me at the bottom for the questions. Alright, so now that we're at the questions, and if you are down here, then you should have gone through all of the chunks by now. Let's go ahead and answer them. What is the relationship between Jing Mei and her mother at the start of the narrative? So remember what we talked about. How did Jing Mei and her mother, how did they feel about each other at the beginning of the narrative? And then cite textual evidence that supports your response. For number 2, it says, in paragraph 15, what does Jing Mei discover about herself, and how does this help develop the theme of the selection? So you have a few things you're looking for here. One, you have to determine the theme of the selection. What is the author trying to tell you through the message of the story? Then you have to look at paragraph 15 and figure out what Jing Mei discovers about herself. That's the main character. And then you have to answer, how does her discovery that you'll be describing help the theme that you discovered? So for number 3, what conflicts are apparent in chunk 3? What are the reasons for the conflicts? So in chunk 3, you're going to go back, look at that area, and look for any and all conflicts, and then explain what the reasons are for those conflicts. Number 4 says, in chunk 4, how does the relationship between Jing Mei's mother and Auntie Lindo contribute to the conflict between Jing Mei and her mother in the story? So think about how Jing Mei and the mother interact with one another. Or I'm sorry, Jing Mei's mother and Auntie Lindo, how they interact with one another. And consider how that might affect how Jing Mei and her mother interact with each other. And then explain it there. For number 5, how does the narrator's tone shift during chunk 5? So you're going to look at chunk 5 and explain how the tone changes. So you're going to have to explain what the tone was before, and then what it changed to, and then how. For number 6, it says reread the last paragraph of chunk 5. Colons in the word but often signal a shift in literature. What shift is happening here? How is it related to the central conflict of the story? So you're going to want to go back to chunk 5 and look at the last paragraph, and you see colons in the word but. So what shift is happening? What's changing at that part? And then how is it related to the central conflict in the story? So the main thing that's causing a problem. For number 7, it says, to what is two kinds referring to in paragraph 67? What conflicting perspectives on cultural identity are evident in this scene? So think about the mother's cultural identity compared to the daughter's cultural identity. Even though they have the same ethnic heritage, the way that they interact within that ethnic heritage are very different from one another, which causes two different cultural identities despite the same ethnicity. So explain what those conflicting perspectives are, and then what two kinds refers to there. For number 8, how does the sentence beginning, for unlike my mother, I did not, connect to the first paragraph of the story? Does this suggest that the conflict in the story is primarily internal or external? So compare that part to the first part of the story in order to determine how they connect, and also how the conflict, whether it's internal, meaning inside, or external, meaning outside. So is it between two characters or the character and herself? For number 9, it says, what is significant about Jing Mei's discovery in the final paragraphs? What does it reveal about her perspective now? Does this bring resolution to the conflicts in her story or not? So you're being asked 3 different things. 1, what is significant about her discovery in the final paragraph? So why is her final discovery important? 2, what does this discovery reveal about the way she now sees things? And then 3, does this solve the problem in the story or no? So as we continue, we have this graphic organizer. So we're going to be completing it, analyzing Jing Mei's internal conflict and her external conflict with her mother. So you're going to be answering, what is the mother's perspective on cultural identity? And you'll put it here. For Jing Mei's perspective, you'll put it here. The contrast with Waverly and Auntie Lindo, that's the cousin and the aunt. And then how do the conflicts connect with the meaning of the work as a whole? So that will be what you put there. For check your understanding, it says, how can the conflict between characters develop the theme of a work? So it's not just talking about this work, but any story in general. How does conflict between characters help demonstrate what the theme of a story is? So you don't have group members, but please generate a list of possible themes and then a thematic statement for the theme you think is most central to this story. So your thematic statement is an interpretive statement articulating the central meaning of the text. So that is what you're doing for this. You're creating a thematic statement about what you think the theme is and why. So last but not least, you have writing to sources, explanatory text. So explain how Tan uses the central conflict between mother and daughter to develop the theme of the work. So be sure to build your essay around a clear focus, so her perspective toward her cultural identity, toward her mother, and toward America. Support your response with quotes and details from the text, and use an academic voice, and vary your syntax by incorporating a variety of phrases in your writing. So here it wants you to write an essay. I'm going to say it only has to be 4 paragraphs, and make sure you answer all of these things when you're working on that. All right, I'm going to say if you have any questions, please reach out to me and let me know, and I'll help you to the best of my ability. And thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day.